I'm going to start out today with David Spencer, and David is an artist. Thank you so much, David, for coming in.
Good morning. Good morning. A pleasure to be here and have a chance to talk about what I do.
Oh yes, I want you to, because I've seen your work already, and it's just fabulous.
Thank you.
So you're gonna tell me about what you do and how you got. First of all, how did you get into art at all?
Well, just a quick background. It's almost something that's part of you, or you're born with it. I could remember being in second grade, and I wasn't doing so well. I wasn't learning as quickly, and I know that the teacher fussed about a drawing I did, and it meant something to me. But
boy.
I'm left-handed and right-brained, and enjoy creating, and it's just something I did all through school, to where I was the class artist, and then in high school I was the cartoonist on the school paper, and I even sold some cartoons to a magazine called Date Book. And then in college at Fresno City, I was the staff artist for a while, but it's music kind of overtook my passion, and I ended up spending more time on music. And then when I got out of college, it becomes got to earn a living, and I eventually gravitated toward teaching. But all the while I was doing a little bit of art. I went through a phase of doing collages made of newspapers, and but by the time I was about 50, I got back to painting just on a weekend basis. It was kind of hobby number 3. After I'd practiced my music and after I'd written little creative energy, I started painting. And when I retired about 5 years ago, first I hit all the beaches up and down California and all that stuff, but coming back home, I settled into what I always wanted to do, was artistic routine. And I'd start each morning by doing a little bit of writing, and then practice my music for a couple hours, and then the afternoons I started painting. And my first paintings during this period were based on photos that had a lot of sentimental value to me. And if we can, I see there's a picture right there. That's me and my wife Rosemary on a vacation in Monterey.
Wow.
And it was, at the time I was thinking mostly of impressionist artists, where you can see that all the faces in the background are just blotches of color, and I wasn't too worried about detail, but I still like to have a recognizable image.
I think they're very, they're artistically really realistic.
And that one right there is another one with me and my wife at Millerton, and on the beach. And that one, I didn't think I was finished when I finished it, but then after I thought, no, leave it like it is. So that kind
that's the best thing.
In fact, that's the challenge of painting, is knowing when to quit. That was another one where it was with my step-grandson, Angel. We were going to fly kites. And I started to notice, though, that I enjoyed doing the backgrounds, that I enjoyed doing the details, and that made it... I don't know, gave me a possible new direction that I evolved into doing landscapes. But there I am with a friend of mine, Steve Carter, who used to run open mic in Fresno, and we've friends forever. And that was at an event put on by Ellie Bluestein at Roding Park one time, and she gave me a photograph, and I used the photograph to make this painting.
Well, your painting is so different. I'm just so impressed with the fact that it's not just everything.
Well,
nice
this is my 3 best friends as a child. That's me on the far right there, And I actually had the chance to give this to the boy on the far left. On his 60th birthday,
Oh.
he invited me, and we hadn't been close over the years, but he just called me as kind of a shot in the dark, and I showed up and I gave him this picture, and people there were just crying, just remembering that special time, and hangs on his wall. And there's one that I actually put in with my landscapes. That's on Pismo Beach. Right there. The next one coming up here, that was one of the first of my local landscapes that I put on display at Sorensen's, which I just joined only about, I think, 4 months ago.
I'm so glad you joined there, because it's a wonderful, wonderful place for art.
Oh, I noticed all the foot traffic, and it was just a lot of people would see it. And there's a familiar landmark there, good old Ming's, which was also once upon a time college pharmacy, and has a pretty big history.
Yes, I know that.
And there's another one that was part of my show at Sorensen's, but this one sold, and I wasn't asking a lot for it, but it was going down Olive Street, which is a very, to me, it's a key street of the city. It's there's always something going on there, and there's a forever changing cast of characters, and it's a good place to take a daily walk. And there's Freebird, where I stop in and look at their old albums a lot, and bought a tie-dye shirt or two there over the years. And that's still there and doing business. And this was one of the first ones that sold at my show to a gentleman that's an old-time friend of mine named Stephen Borelli. And I got a chance to deliver it, and he's collected a lot of Fresno art, including the great Varaz, Samuelian, and some other people that have come from around here that kind of slipped my mind now. But this one particular, he showed up, and it was my first showing, and it wasn't even 5 o'clock yet. And he showed up, and he said he wanted to buy it.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, it's a good old Fresno library.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, and this is not one of my more lifelike ones. It's very a little more abstract, but most people can tell it's Weldon Street, headed to Fresno High. And a lot of I've had people show up that say, "Oh, I once had a shop in that building, and I knew this person that was in that building." And
that's great.
They always change over the years. This one sold also, and it was to a couple named Al and Claudia, who were actually my first big patrons. They showed up, and Claudia was looking over my paintings, and she spent a lot of time there, and then she disappeared a little bit and came back with her husband, and it was a matter of, I'll take that one and that one.
Oh, my gosh.
When she was done, she bought 6 of them and paid cash. And
fantastic.
I thought, wow, this is working out okay. That one right there, I just saw that car. It's actually not white. It's actually blue. But the photograph I worked with was very much lit up like that. But that car is still parked on Maroa, the street that runs behind Van Ness. And even the car next to it. And it was from a photo I took about 2 years ago.
Wow.
And this one here, I just sold at the last art hop to a couple. They came the time before, and they didn't quite have the money for it. And I said, well, it'll probably be here next month. And they came back, and the lady of the couple says, oh, it's still here. and she was so enthusiastic. And I think she'd lived in a building that's actually way in the far right corner. That's not visible from the photograph. But that place actually not quite the same now. They took the bus bench out like they did on a couple of bus benches on Van Ness.
I like like the benches.
But I enjoy trying to recreate the foliage and everything. This here is my sister's first apartment. It was kind of like the first party house we had as teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
I have a sister who's 2 years older, and she rented the upper right-hand complex there, and we went, like I say, had many parties there. A couple of times she went out of town and let me stay there. So
Wow.
that was, I was only maybe 19 and still living at home. So a lot of good memories there. And one thing that really impressed me, I gave this to my sister as a present for Christmas. And she lives in Santa Rosa, and her home was in danger during the Santa Rosa fire.
Ooh.
But she told me later she had to pack an emergency getaway, only what would fit in her car, only the most important things. And she told me that made the cut. that picture was important enough to throw in the car so it wouldn't get burned.
Wonderful.
And there's a wonderful chicken pie shop there that actually had the most fun doing the billboard on top of it and the sky.
I didn't ever see that billboard.
Well, it's I kind of focused on it, and I hope it stays in business too. It seems like they're struggling now.
Yeah.
And there's an ATM that's on the far side of it now that changes its appearance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And this one here, this one was real popular. What really helped me was putting things on Facebook. And I kind of get a sense on what people are interested in and what might sell. And this one sold, one of my biggest sellers. And it's, I even obscure the name on it. It's a place called Lucy's Beauty Salon. But you can't tell it from the painting. I intentionally blurred it. But the building is so unique. I think it used to be like a convenience store of the 60s, and people would drive through and get things. But over the years, it's been a beauty shop for quite some time.
I'm trying to think of what is really impressing me. I think it's the fact that it's realistic, but it's artistic. Overly artistic with the realistic behind, I just love them.
Well, it's I do use a lot of white, and I think that one could we go back to the one before, please, if it's possible. That one there, it's right next to Food King, and that was one of my daughter's favorite rental places when she lived in town. She lives in Oregon now, but there's where a scene of a lot of her favorite parties and events, and you could see Food King right next door where they probably made a lot of trips.
Yeah.
And I gave that to her for a birthday present, and she was pretty happy with it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that right there is a house that's still standing on the corner of Klondike and San Pablo. And it was built by my great-grandfather, whose name was Wright Spencer, back in 1892, I think.
Oh, my God.
And it's still standing. The people that currently own it allowed myself and my daughter to visit it. And but it's still it was built to last.
Yes, that's a beautiful house.
And
Glad you got inside of it. That's really wonderful.
And there's just an odd scene. I think that's Stanislaus Avenue, and usually a vacant lot wouldn't be so prominent. But there's something about it that I thought I'd have that, and then the surrounding big buildings in the background. And it's just something that impressed on me. And I ride around town a lot on my bicycle with we all have these phone cameras now.
Yeah.
And take pictures, and out of that I gotten the subjects for my paintings.
It's wonderful.
And this one here was a seller too. I don't have it anymore. That's Elizabeth Street by Van Ness, and right now it's the place where Brass Unicorn is. And but this is one I worked on a lot longer than the others, and I'm kind of keeping a higher price on it.
Yes.
But just to try to get the colors and the feeling, and it kind of creates an emotional feeling within me, and it's gratifying to see other people share that
That's
feeling.
great. That's great. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that media in so that we could see your work. It would be hard to explain. Probably isn't for you because you probably had to explain it so many times. But it's so different. That's what I call unique, and I just love that. I love that.
I appreciate it.
Well, it's much more creative than I can be, because if you got an animal to do, you got to make it look like the animal. You can't take too many. But I guess if I could get something that you could do the animal in this reality that you did them, it'd be interesting to try that.
Well, usually I'm just trying to think what is essential, because I never try to be a photorealist. That would drive me crazy.
Oh no.
But you just think I study Monet a lot.
Yes,
Monet
I
is
love
on
Monet.
YouTube. You turn on Monet and you can get an hour and a half of just changing Monet pieces, and sometimes I'll just have that on as background while I'm practicing music.
Well, yesterday or the day before on PBS, they had this whole beautiful story about landscapes. From where in the very beginning, the first landscapes ever, I think it was China, and then all the way up through the different changes and the different ways of doing landscapes. And yours is the total new one. It goes on that, should be on that program, because it's the most recent different thing. Don't you agree?
Well, I at some point I thought, I might have hit on something here, just following instincts.
I think you have. I
And
really do.
it's been really gratifying to see that turn into money, even though we don't do it for that.
So tell us about...
It's nice.
It is nice, and I want more people to go down and see them in reality and buy them. So tell us more about where, when they can buy this.
Oh, the best time has been at Sorensen's gallery on Art Hop night from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And it's once a month. The one thing that I must caution people on is that it is not air conditioned. And so, as I understand it, I've heard from other artists there that not much goes on during the summer. That if our next art hop, if it's up in the hundreds, it might not be very comfortable there. But I'm sure I'll be there, dressed as coolly as I can.
Oh, people have been going there for years during the summer, so I think they're going to be, brave enough to go down and face a little. They've got really big fans. They're doing the best that they can, but you'll see art that is all different types of art. It's a wonderful. To me, it's a place that could go down in art history, just like these other people get all together in one place and have the art. I think this could be the same thing. So
I first went to the studio about a little over a year ago, and I was impressed with the number of artists and the amount of foot traffic. It's almost at the very southern tip of our city, but people make a point of stopping by there and walking through, and each one's been a very good experience. I guess I've only had 3 or 4 of them so far.
Okay. Well, anyway, we'll get you down there to Art Hop in what day is it on this new one?
The
July.
first Thursday. I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
It's the first Thursday in July.
Of July. I believe it's either the 6th or the 5th or something around there. But most people know when Art Hop night is in Fresno,
and it's what's the street, Van Ness?
Van Ness, the very
it's
tip of
way
Van
down
Ness.
the southern tip of Van Ness.
If you've ever seen that sign, you are now leaving Fresno. It's right next
That's
to
the
that
one.
sign. Yeah.
But it's easy to get there on the freeway, and then or just go down through town. Either way, it's not a hard place to find.
Well, you follow Van Ness, and there's kind of a strange space where you're going past a few warehouses and empty buildings, but it's, like I say, it's right by that leaving Fresno sign.
Okay. Well, I hope they have lots and lots of you there, and don't forget to come to the Fresno Art Hall, because that's where my art is. Okay. Thank you so much for
the
coming
pleasure.
in. Will
Thank
you
you.
please come again?
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah, so we just love to have you and get people to know you really well.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Okay. You take care now.
All right.
We'll be right back.